my pleasure to welcome you to this online course on patient and public involvement for this year investigator-initiated clinical trial call by the Swiss National Foundation. And as the head of communication at the Swiss Clinical Trial Organization, it's really also my pleasure to welcome our speakers today. So the way it's going to be, it will be the presentation today will be held by different people. So first we will have an overall introduction on PPI by Fabienne Suero, who is my colleague and the PPI project manager at the Swiss Clinical Trial Organization. And then we will dive into the subject with information about really the grant and the call and what is useful information for applicants. This is given by Larissa Aragon, who is a panel member, an evaluation panel member in PMLE from the Swiss National Foundation. Then we will have the CTU perspective, so the clinical trial unit perspective and how they can support the researchers in developing their call. This will be given by Sandra Kollmeyer from the DKF in Basel. And then something more in practice about also lessons learned and hand-on advice and best practices. And this is given by Cindy Allenbach and Marie Méon from the CHUV in Lausanne. So thank you already for the speakers to have to give their time today to give us more information about this, and thank you all for participating to this course. Next slide, I think, Fabienne. Yeah, so some general consideration and information. So as usual, please mute your microphone when you're not speaking to avoid any background noise. Feel free to turn off your camera during the presentation. This meeting is recorded. The recording will be available on our website, excluding the question and answer session. Also for data privacy reason, but we will publish without name the questions afterwards in a document format as well on our website. Please write your question in the chat or raise your hand via Zoom. After each presentation, there is a dedicated Q&A session for each subsection. These are the general objectives of today: is to understand the PPI concept, to translate PPI principle to your study, your projects, to create a plan to include PPI in your project, and to recognize also the value of the clinical trials unit as partners throughout the entire project, and apply as well your PPI requirements. Voilà. Fabienne, I think I leave the floor to you.
Exactly. So hello, everybody. So first of all, I will introduce a little bit the SCTO. So the SCTO is a pure research infrastructure of national importance, and we provide all the services to plan, conduct, and analyze high-quality clinical research projects. We provide our services in all therapeutic fields and do not only focus on one key area of clinical research, for example, oncology. And our 7 clinical trial units are located at 5 university hospitals and 2 big cantonal hospitals. And each CTO coordinates one of our 8 SCTO platforms, which are focusing on different key areas in clinical research, for example, data management, education, or auditing. And through our SCTO platforms, there is an increased harmonization of processes, and the experts can share their knowledge. And our SCTO platforms develop tools and resources for the clinical research community. So here I give you a quick introduction in our big tool, the GCS. It's an interactive tool designed to help you plan and conduct clinical studies in compliance with regulations. It provides practical insights across 11 key research topics, offering step-by-step support. You can access the tool here if you want to know more about it. So then we go straight into the topic. What is PPI? So PPI is research being carried out with or by patients and members of the public rather than to, about, or for them. There exists no clear definition yet, and the SCTO ensures that clinical research is patient relevant and it provides dialogue between researchers and patients. Patients and members of the public become actively involved in shaping the goals, design and evaluation of research projects by sharing their knowledge with a specific disease. So therefore, patients can help improve the healthcare development. There is a difference between involvement and participation. Involvement means that patients and members of the public are actively involved in clinical research projects as full partners. That means that the patients are part of the research team. And participation is when patient and member of the public take part in clinical trials, usually by providing health data, like like a test person. And the UPATI defines patients as the public in general, individual patients, and so on. All of these are PPI contributors. So why should PPI be integrated into research? Because today's research is tomorrow's medicine. Patients are directly affected by the outcome of clinical research. Therefore, they should have an influence on it. And also, PPI supports the empowerment of patients and versus their rights to have a voice in clinical research. And it increase their capacity to act on issues that they themselves define as important. And also, it has the potential to democratize the research process and to make clinical research more accountable. Additionally, it also improves the transparency as academic clinical research is financed by the public funds. PPI can make the funding more transparent. And also, PPI is relevant. Patients can help identify research questions that matters most to the public, and also in this way help to improve the research agenda. Additionally, recruitment and retention involving patients makes it easier to recruit and retain trial participants, because patients can connect researchers with the right community. In addition, they can give their advice on the feasibility on the study process. And when clinical trials are designed and conducted in a way which is acceptable to the patients, it is also easier to retain participants. And also, through patients, study results can be disseminated to a wider audience. Involving the right people well can help to produce research which respects the rights, safety, dignity, and well-being of participants. So I don't know why you can't see it, but how to find your PPI contributors is our recommendations are align internally, identify and contact relevant patient organization, post a call for interest, contact your local CTUs, or contact the SCTO for this purpose. And also develop material that clearly explains your research project in lay language, describe the role of the PPI contributors, and specify the knowledge, experience, skills your PPI contributor should bring with, and also provide information about the amount of work time required as well as on remuneration. So this slide shows you the possibilities for PPI. PPI can occur during individual phases of clinical research or also during the whole process, as you can see. So patients can, for example, give their help to identify research questions, but also communicate study in lay language or support the evaluation of the study. On the SCTO website, you can find fact sheets on the general information about PPI, and also a guide for researchers to address PPI in clinical trials, where the guide shows how provide input about how to involve patients in research projects. And also you can find this remuneration policy, which describes how patients and the public should be compensated. Contributions from patients are highly appreciated and therefore should also be compensated. And we recommend you to follow a blended model. The amount of the money depends on the level of involvement and also on their skills. So here you can see this blended model. It depends on the level of involvement and the skills. And for example, the compensation providing information means, for example, if patients tell you how they live with a specific disease, or advice means if they identify research priorities or, for example, review the study material. Then joint decision-making is, for example, if they evaluate applications for grant, and leadership could be, for example, if they lead a subgroup as a project manager. And then you can also see it depends on the skills of the patient and publics. For example, medical expertise is when they have a specific knowledge in anatomy or the use of a treatment. The system expertise is when they have a specific knowledge about regulatory processes, and methodological expertise is when they have good, for example, good communication skills, and the personal framework is when they have an experience with a specific disease. And yes, the more they know, the more they should be compensated. So this is actually already the end of the presentation. If you want to learn more about PPI, I recommend you to visit our website. And if you have questions, you can also write the email to ppi@actio.ch. Do you have any specific questions?
No, apparently not. So thank you, Fabienne, for this nice overview. We leave the floor to the Swiss National Foundation. I think that from you will share your screen. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Okay, so swap. Now you see it in presentation mode, right? Very good. Good. So thank you very much, Sabina. Yes, so my name is Nopium Le. As already mentioned, I am from the SNSF office, and today Larissa and I will give you a presentation on the PPI from the perspective of the Swiss National Science Foundation. So we will first start with PPI initiative at the SNSF. and within the IICT program, and then shortly talk about the IICT program itself and PPI within the program, and then lastly we'll give some practical recommendations for researchers. Sorry, I just need to, okay, sorry, no. Good. So historically seen, the first IICT call took place back in 2015. Then 3 years later, patient involvement was added as an evaluation criterion. And then in 2020, patient and public representatives became an integral part of the IICT evaluation panel. And since 2022, applicants can apply with the letter of intent PPI preparatory grant. And then in order to enhance the PPI aspect even more in our IICT program, we have introduced in the current call, so call 24, the involvement of PPI experts during the peer review phase of the submitted proposals. So as mentioned before, applicants can apply for a PPI preparatory grant. The idea is that applicants should take the opportunity to use this grant for involving patient and public during the development of the application prior to submission of the full proposal. An amount of up to 5,000 francs can be requested for a maximum duration of 4 months. Please note that the PPI preparatory grant must be submitted together with the letter of intent by end of May. Submission of the letter of intent is mandatory for submission of the full proposal in November. In contrast, submitting a PPI preparatory grant is not mandatory. However, the SNSF encourages the applicants to really seize this opportunity. In this graph here on the right, I would like to show you the numbers of letter of intents that we have received and also PPI preparatory grants in the last 3 years. So please note that the number of the PPI preparatory grants are mostly lower than the letter of intents due to, well, partly due to the reason that resubmitted proposals did not necessarily apply for an additional preparatory grant. Now I would like to quickly present the overview of the IICT call. So as already mentioned, applicants must submit a letter of intent by end of May in order to submit a full proposal in November. With the letter of intent, applicants can apply for a PPI preparatory grant, which they then can use, as I already mentioned, for involving patient and public in the development of the full proposal. A PPI engagement plan must be submitted with the letter of intent and then elaborated in detail in the full proposal. Then after the submission in November, the proposals will be peer-reviewed by international clinical, statistical, and since the current call, also by PPI experts. Then the applicants will have the chance to draft a rebuttal letter by addressing the points raised by the reviewers, and then all evaluation documents will be taken into account and evaluated by the evaluation panel. Since the evaluation of the IICT program is quite a long process, applicants will receive the decision after around 13 months. So as already shown, the IICT panel consists of clinical, statistical, and PPI experts, and it is important to mention that everyone has an equal voice. So during the evaluation, the panel takes the following 4 criteria into account: the originality, the clinical relevance, scientific value, and topicality of the study, then also the suitability of methods and feasibility, then of course the documentation of patient and public involvement, and lastly the scientific track record and expertise of the applicants in relation to the project. So I'm handing over to Larissa for the next few slides.
Yes, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. Thank you, Nopi. I'm very happy to be here, and I would like to start our presentation or continue with this section by showing this, I would say, a very interesting cartoon, which in my eyes tells us what really matters, and meaning, let's take some time in your busy day, either as a clinician or researcher, look back, as in this cartoon, and try to listen and to understand what really matters for patients, and take the time to learn from their experiences, and this will truly enrich your project proposals. In the next slide, I think we can deep now into what we as PPI experts or contributors on the IICT panel look at every stage of your research life cycle. And we truly believe that understanding our perspective will help you integrate more meaningfully this PPI involvement and strengthen your proposals in your studies. This is what we have seen over the past years. So basically, we have 3 phases before submission, which is the phase where you demonstrate the foundation of your PPI work. So when we review your proposals, we are not just ticking the boxes on a form. We're really looking for genuine engagement and evidence that PPI voices really have shaped your research from the outset. And the lay summary is your first impression. So is this, just ask the question if this is truly understandable to someone without any medical and scientific background. Avoid any jargon and clearly articulate the aim of your study. And this will demonstrate, of course, the commitment that you have and the transparency since the beginning of your study. The participation in proposal preparation, I think it's great that the SNF is now granting this type of PPI preparation grants. I hope more research teams could make use of it. And what I would like to say here in this preparation phase is show, don't just tell. So consultation is key. We really want to see evidence that you actively consulted with patient representatives before you finalize your research questions, endpoints, and recruitment strategies. You know, what were their initial thoughts? What were their priorities? This is important that we see that you guys are taking this as the SNF is intended to. So the impact, this is crucial to demonstrate that this involvement during this consultation phase, that you need to, that is not just about to say you talk to patients, but also to add explanations on what was the input and the impact that really led you to the development of your proposed study. And you can be very specific, you know, like how did the feedback influence your research question, for example, or the design or the choice of outcomes. We really like to hear that from the research teams. Evidence is, we need clear evidence of patient participation. Sometimes we face some vague statements of intent, and we believe this is not sufficient. So you can also show meeting minutes, documented feedback, specific examples on how patient input led to concrete changes in your proposal. Again, we're still in the before phase of your submission. So if we move to the next slide, during the clinical trial, we are here talking about embedding PPI in action. So once your study is underway, we assess how PPI is being actively maintained and contributing to your research. So first of all, defining the roles and providing support. This is very important. We look for clearly defined roles and responsibilities for patient representatives within your study management. The feasibility from the patient lens. So we evaluate the feasibility of your research plan from the perspective of the study participants. So have you considered, for example, the burden of participation, the questionnaires, test, treatment, number of contacts, time required, logistical challenges, We also look for evidence that you have discussed these aspects with patient representatives, and that demonstrates a truly patient-centered approach. Has been already mentioned. It is important that we also know what is your strategy for reimbursement. And I skipped the sensitive data. I would like to come back to that right now. So we evaluate this feasibility of dealing with sensitive data. And now with AI and algorithms and more research teams bringing that into their proposals, we need to know that you have discussed these particular data protection issues with the patient representatives. And, you know, patients' lived experience can also provide with these invaluable insights into your potential concerns or ethical considerations. So after the clinical trial, the next slide is really about ensuring meaningful dissemination and the evaluation of your PPI. So the impact of your research extends beyond publication in academic journals. We really want to see a commitment to sharing findings with the people who contributed to their research. So make sure your dissemination is tailored to patients. What communication channels will you use? The timing, will it be active like newsletters or more passive like a website updates? And make it appropriate to reach your target patient group, and of course, understandable. We also like to see that you reflect on your PPI journey, meaning the PPI evaluation plan. So finally, when the PPI journey is coming towards an end, it's important to see if the PPI has had an impact during and after the study. So how would you assess what worked well and could be improved, and the tangible benefits of involving patients and public in your research? This will also be good to understand, and we will love to hear more about any ideas in this perspective, how you plan to do it. We believe that by focusing on these areas, you would come into a very successful proposal. And remember that everyone has an equal voice in your research teams. And I think we have another 2 slides probably, right, Nopi? Yeah.
Yes.
So the next slide kind of summarizes. I'm not going to go through everything again, but it's kind of not like a checklist, but some of the key statements that I mentioned before. So documentation is very important. There is a very specific section within the submission where you can add all these topics that we discussed today. Evidence also important, as mentioned, of what you are currently doing, involving the public and patients, and the dissemination of your study progress and results are also key. I also brought another 2 slides. Those will be my last 2 slides about my, let's say, my personal experience reviewing already some or many of the research proposals. So one is the cultural competence. And I think it's what it means by this is to think about actively accommodating diverse patient backgrounds and perspectives. Sometimes I see many even exclusion points or exclusion criteria, the language. From my point of view, this should not be an exclusion criteria anymore. There are already many different tools so we can make this happen, especially in Switzerland, where we have a very diverse and rich cultural population. Patient-led research means considering to have a more prominent role of the patients in the research agendas and priorities. For example, I've seen some very good ideas exploring options like patient-led forums and workshops where, you know, patient voices, their research areas most important to them. This can also ensure that you addresses the needs and concerns that really matter most to patients. Ongoing training and education. This is something that we see since a couple of years, and we would like to see even more, to go beyond initial training by really providing ongoing education and support for patient participants, keep them informed and engaged throughout the entire research process. Also consider giving regular updates on your research progress. Feedback mechanism on research impact means that you establish clear channels through which patients can receive feedback about their involvement. And also the incorporation of patient stories. I've seen some lay summaries even being based on personal patient stories. I think there are very nice creative ways how to bring this systematically collecting and integrating those patient stories throughout or into your research. Flexible participation. Remember that some of the patient representatives or PPI experts and recognize the health conditions that also may affect their ability to contribute consistently. So maybe flexible scheduling and remotely, now it's easier than a couple of years ago. It's very important. My last slide, and I think this is important, is about choosing the right PPI expert. What I mean by that is looking for the PPI with the relevant experience and expertise. Their background should align with your research area or the patient population you are talking about or reaching out. And the PPI experts should also have a track record of successful PPI engagement. Now we have in Switzerland courses that are offered in German, soon in Italian and French, but there are also online courses from EUPATI that you can also search for those PPI experts with certifications that might give you also an idea of the level of involvement and education that they have, understanding their life cycle of the medicines. Also consider PPI experts who have worked with similar patient populations or research areas. And the last one is ensure that the PPI expert has good communication skills and can work effectively with you and other patients. Effective collaboration is key to the success of PPI. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, please feel free to raise your hand either during the webinar or afterwards.
Yes, thank you, Salisa. Yeah, I will take over again. So I have 2 more short slides to go. So just to summarize again what has already been said by myself and Larissa now. So in general, the SNSF encourages the researchers to involve patient and public in the development of the proposal from the beginning, as already said. That is why there is also the opportunity to apply for a PPI preparatory grant, and applicants should show in their proposal the feedback from the patient representatives and how this feedback is integrated into the study design. Then further, they should also provide clear evidence that patient representatives commit to participation, including their role and also compensation strategy. And yes, please note that the SCTO provides supporting materials as well for this. Then further, the SNSF highly recommends the applicants to consider patient-centered outcome measures and also the priority setting partnerships. There are 2 links that you can consult for further information. Yes, so if you have questions, you can also contact IICT at SNF directly, and we are happy to help you there.
So for the second part of our PPI training course, and so it's my pleasure now to introduce you Sandra Kollmeier from the DKF in Basel, and she will present you how the CTU can support the applicants.
Thank you very much, Sabine, for this kind introduction. My name is Sandra Kohlmeier, and as she said, I'm working at the DKF today. I'm here with my head as project lead PPI. And in addition to the CTU support, I would like to give you a little bit more details regarding the process and timelines of the IICT call, a little bit regarding the requirements, and yes, then also something about the CTU support. But before I start with the details, I would really like to wake you up and check whether you are back from from the break. And I would like to know, do you already have experience with the IICT call? And you, I think, have this button there, down, reactions. You can either say cross for no or yeah, for example, this, great, thanks a lot. So I guess it's clear that the SNF has some experience, and also from Bern, okay, I see it's a mixed picture. Okay, so maybe a few more details might help you. Okay, so we start with the process and timelines, and as you already have heard, you need to meet some criteria. That's very important, and please check therefore also the IICT call checklist if you are unsure, but for sure you need to have an unmet medical or social need to tackle in your clinical trial, and it is very important. It should be very important for patients, your research question, and of course it should be outside of industry focus, because otherwise it could be paid by industry. And it has to be an RCT only. So if you are not familiar with that, I hope so, but if not, I have here some links. You can check what is ClinO and ClinO MD. Good. And you can start submitting. I think it will open mid-April. You have to have a My SNF account. If you don't have one, I would recommend to open one. And please also make sure that at the 27th of May that you submit everything before 5 o'clock in the evening, Swiss local time. Okay, so regarding PPI, you have to address PPI in the letter of intent. Optional, as already has been said, it's optional. You can have also the PPI preparatory grant. I will come back to this later. And of course, you have also to address it in the proposal that you submit in 1st of November. And potentially, you also have to address it now. It was the first year, as mentioned before, in 24, so this March, in the rebuttal letter. And when do you think PPI activities should be integrated in a clinical research project? I think you have heard that already before. I just want to quickly summarize that it's important for each project. So don't think your project, you don't need PPI, because personally, I think it's important for each project. It can give value for each of your projects. And important, it is recommended to have PPI activities during your entire research project. But it is best to start right from the beginning, as said before, with the research question, and the earlier you start, the better and the greatest benefit you have for your project. What kind of PPI activities? This is very individual depending on your project. Regarding the PPI preparatory grant, as been said before, that it is very important that this grant is focused on the development of the application, and also on the planning of PPI activities during the entire research project. So the planning, in the planning phase, these 5,000 francs can only be given for the compensation of the PPI representatives, so for their time, working time, their travel costs, accommodation and meals, but not for your own salary. But also maybe for the organization of meetings for PPI activities, the costs there. So what you have to do, you have to enter the PPI activities you are planning for your preparatory phase. So before you submit the proposal in the letter of intent anyway, I will show you later, and you can use that directly also for the preparatory grant submission. This submission is separate, so you have to have a new number in my SNF. It's also important that you really have PPI representatives, and you need an agreement with these PPI contributors. There's either the letter of commitment for patient representatives from the SNSF, and in the end, you also have to hand in a final financial report. This has to be submitted to the SNF and to be approved by the SNSF as well at the end of the funding period. So what are the requirements? They differ a little bit depending on whether it's a letter of intent or the proposal. So we start with the letter of intent and the PPI preparatory grant. And as I said, there is this section in the letter of intent. It's a table which has to be filled in. And you can see it here. This is actually how it looks like. It is quite easy to fill in. You have these four rows: activity. So you write in what activities you are planning in the planning phase. Please be detailed regarding who you want to involve, what kind of PPI contributors or partners, what kind of method you want to use, maybe a focus group, maybe interviews, maybe a survey. Then please also concretely describe the role and task that the PPI contributors will have. Also the benefit or added value that you expect from this PPI activity, and the budget that you expect to need for these PPI activities. And this has been mentioned before. There's this compensation policy of the SCTO if you are not sure what to compensate. And here the cycle of the study, and for the preparatory grant and the letter of intent, the activities needed that you have to fill in here are really the activities of these two first things in your study: identification of the research question and study design and funding applications. And I have put here some ideas, some examples, but I think we will have more examples later in the next talk where it really goes into PPI and practice. So I will not go into detail there. If you have successfully submitted the letter of intent and you have the PPI preparatory grant, you have done your PPI activities, and now it's proposal time. So 1st of November is the deadline. And for this proposal, you have two parts regarding PPI. So first, the SNSF would like to know what has been done, what kind of PPI activities have been done in the before the proposal submission, so in the preparatory phase, and what kind of activities are you planning during and after your trial conduct. So in the first part, the A part, you actually just describe what has mainly also been described in the letter of intent already. Maybe things have changed. So of course you can also enter these changes, and maybe you have additional activities done which have been not on the letter of intent. Of course you can describe them there as well. The role might be the same as the letter of intent, as well as the objective. The only really new thing is that the SNF would like to see what in the end was the influence of these PPI activities to the study you submit now in the proposal. And it is really necessary to describe what kind of benefit or influence these activities had. And then they have the part B of the proposal regarding PPI. So the PPI activities you plan during and after. And here it is separated to the phases of the study. As you can see, management and study process, data analysis, dissemination and implementation of the study results, and evaluation of the PPI activities, for example. So here you describe the activities during and after, and this is the same as for the letter of intent. So you describe the role of the PPI contributor and the objective of the PPI activity. And very important, don't forget also to put a budget for the PPI activities you are planning during and after the trial conduct. And this can be done under the funding on my SNF under cost category, patient and public involvement. So don't forget that, so that you have enough money and budget to really do the PPI activities. And yeah, this is just an overview. So for the part B, it's really the interesting part is these aspects, the management of study process, data analysis, dissemination and implementation and evaluation. And the same as before, I'm just giving here some examples, but more examples to come. So now coming to the CTU support, and I think it is highly recommended by the SNSF to involve your local CTU for support. So please contact your local CTU as early as possible, if possible, already now, because the CTUs also need to plan, and and we also have limited staff members, and the later you come, the harder it gets. So yeah, come as early as possible. And you need also a letter of support from the CTUs, from the involvement of the CTUs, has to be submitted with the letter of intent and the proposal. And if you're unsure which CTU belongs to you, here is the map of the CTUs under the umbrella of the SCTO. So you can see in Basel, Zurich, St. Gallen, Lugano, Bern, Lausanne, and Geneva. And I'm sure one of these CTUs is really happy to help you out for your IICT call, proposal, and letter of intent and preparatory grant. So for the whole process. And I can just give the example of the DKF in Basel, since I'm from Basel. And here we have, for example, sorry, I have a problem with this. So, yeah, so here we have, for example, the possibility to give PPI support. So we have a consulting where we basically try to give answers to all PPI questions that you have. We offer support, for example, for the preparation of the IICT call, but also other grants regarding maybe for the PPI plans, maybe you need a review, a feedback, maybe a cost estimation is helpful for you. And also we support the implementation of PPI activities. So if you have any questions and if you belong to Basel, just come and we are happy to help you out. In addition, we offer PPI education, and maybe this might be helpful for you. This information is quite new. So we have a new online course which is freely available for everybody. It's for patients, and it's called Patient Involvement in Medical Research. It's not in English. It is in German, French, and Italian. So the free languages of patients in Switzerland. And I think it's very nice if you need, for example, a training for your PPI partners, then this might be helpful for you. You can have a look, and they can train the parts that are important for your trial, maybe. In addition, we have, actually this is next week, so maybe you'd still want to apply. We might have some last places left. We have a workshop with patient and researchers together for research that takes us further, it's called, and It's to give the idea of PPI to both patients and researchers and work together on first questions. Yeah, and the EUPATI expert training, patient expert training, has been done in Basel already 2 times. And so around 40 patient experts, EUPATI, Swiss patient experts are trained already now. And happy to be involved in projects. So regarding the IICT call, maybe this is also helpful for you if you're not in Basel. We have an information sheet regarding the literature search. If you are really in the beginning of your project, it might be helpful. And we also have a milestone for submission overview, like a key points plan where you can check where am I and what kind of points I still have to think of, and with some really practical parts as well. So it might be interesting for you. Just come and check out the link and have a look. It's in German only, unfortunately. And if you want to contact the DKF Basel, it would be via the contact formula. Yeah, I think with this, I'm already at the end, and I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
I don't see any question.
No questions?
No question. There was one in the chat, but I'm not sure. I don't know if you can read it, Sandra, or not. Essential is PPI for all studies at all levels required mandatory, or is it meant that it is essential to make an assessment at study setup?
So I think, as said before, if the most important thing, personally, I think, is in the planning phase. So that really the endpoints are relevant for patients, that the questions are relevant, all endpoints, but mainly, of course, the primary endpoint are relevant for patients. And so I recommend to have PPI activities during the whole trial because it is helpful for you. It can give additional value, the patient perspective to a lot of different points of your study. And of course, it depends on the kind of project you have. So the strategy, what kind of activities and where and when is depending on your project.
Yeah. Thank you, Sandra. So thanks a lot again, Sandra, for this very nice presentation and with a lot of explanation, useful explanation for the applicant. Now we come to the practice, PPIE in practice with an example from the SHU given by Marie Meon and Cindy Allenbach. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
I'll leave it to you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Can you hear us and can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Perfect. Wonderful. So we will be two to present you these slides today. Maybe let's introduce ourselves. So I am Cindy Allenbach. I'm the head of the research consent unit of the clinical research and investigators advisor here at SHUV.
Marie Meon, I'm a physician from background, and I'm working as a senior house staff physician in the division of internal medicine. And I'm also leading a national project whose name is Lucid. It's a national data stream. I will share with you the experience we built within the project and before the project also regarding PPI. Oops. Yeah, so yes, we can start immediately. So This national data stream is one within 4 other, maybe you heard already. The question in this study was how to monitor on study quality of care within hospitalized patients in Swiss university hospitals. I don't want to speak too much about the project, but the preparatory phase was the same as a IICT call, and we also had to think about how to include patient partners or contributors within the project. So we will alternate on here. Cindy will speak about some preparatory phase on the Canva. Yes,
Yeah.
I think you can tell better about it.
Yeah, thank you. So I hope I won't repeat too much what was already said before, because you already saw this figure in the previous presentations. But just would like to stress that it's very important to know that you can really include patients all along the project. And if we talk about the preparatory phase, you can involve them during the identification of your research question, but also to help you to design your study, write your protocol and application. And so for this, you can really imply PPI contributors in, for example, individual interviews, focus group surveys, in order to help you think about those aspects such as the research question, the outcomes of the study, the methodology you plan to use for the study. And you can also imply them to help you review afterwards your lay summary and the study documents that you plan to send, in order to make sure that they really respect the patient vision, but also that they are, if I talk about the lay summary, that this document is really clear enough and understandable for the large public.
Exactly. On here, I will speak about some example. And before to ask patient to review the lay summary, we faced some challenges. It was to really recruit the patient partners. So we started with a consultation with the existing PPI expert. It was in Geneva. I think in each CTU now there is some expertise regarding this. There is also some citizen labs. And if you have no idea after this course, you can already, I think it's a good thing to have a consultation first to discuss with possibilities. And then the best is to recruit some of patients. And here, this is also something I learned from the patients themselves. And they told me many times, but now I think it's something is clear for me. The patient participants, it's not a patient partner. So there is some differences, and it was said before. A patient contributor has an education normally, and it depends on the trial. And then within this patient partner who already have some education regarding what is PPI, you have to define what are the contributors you need in your trial. And regarding the representativity, it will never be perfect, but you can think about it to have some male, female, different age, ideally. And also because in Switzerland we have different speaking parts, it's important to also think about it. For us, for example, we did our best to recruit patients and partners. And finally, we ended out with mostly female, elderly, well, they were retired, and speaking French. And it was really hardly criticized by reviewer. But, well, you will do your best, I'm sure. But this is an issue, or at least a challenge, just to have patient contributors that can represent your trial. And in the pre-funding phase, what the patient contributors did, it was to confirm that the research question was for them relevant. And this was in kind of discussion during the consultation. Lay summary, I think it's really crucial. And here it was not only reviewed by patient contributors, but really it was co-written with a native English speaker. We were lucky we had a patient contributor who is actually, she's a teacher and she's a native English speaker. So she really writes the lay summary for us based on our executive summary. And I also learned that finally the age we should have as a goal is around 12 years old readability. So it's really much lower than normally what we do when we do a lay summary. At least when I did my first lay summary, it was mostly for maybe university readers and not for a large public. And then we also discuss about the creation of some questionnaire together. On one important point that you can already put forward in the preparatory phase, that maybe you have a patient contributor who has quite enough experience to be member of a board, advisory board or executive board or a patient panel board. So you can find on our web page some example. This is the executive summary on here under. You can also see the lay summary. They are in German, French, and English. Again, it's important to have lay summary in native language of future participants. And I also put in really under in it's orange here. I don't see. I think you see it as I see. It's the guidelines for lay summary. You don't need to read it all because it's really long, but it's maybe something you can reference in your proposal to make sure that if you have a low reading age, it's related to what guidelines say it's the best practice. So this is, yes, I said 12, maybe here it's a reading age 14. As you can see, the words are really easy. The sentences are short, and you explain what are the things. For example, in Lucid, it's about low value care. There is one example of low value care is when a nurse gives a sedatives, and even you explain what is a sedative to another patient who doesn't necessarily need it. This was written by a patient contributor, not by me. Again, this is maybe something that could help you. I don't want you to really influence, but what is difficult when you see many patient contributors and you need to choose them is how to recruit them. Finally it's like an interview. You really have to put some question in place on here in this link. You can also see some maybe helpful tools. I will let you go and see. Again, frequently asked question for researcher. This is something that can help you. This is pre-funding question. Even if you read them, it will maybe make clear for you what you could have as a discussion with patient contributor. Identify clinically related problem, and then establish together the research question. Maybe you are further, and it's too late to ask this question, but you can maybe focus on the research design. Really importantly is, for example, if we have a follow-up, is it okay to have 2 months between 2 follow-up? Is it okay to ask the patient to come to the consultation, or is it fragile patient, you should go to home? And this is really good to say that it was discussed together with patient contributors, how you design the follow-up, or some questionnaires, or the quantity of questionnaires. So all the questions are here, and you will have the material. And this was something from the NHS, so it was in the project on diabetes, but just as an example.
Then what happens during the trial? During the trial, you can involve PPIE contributors to help you manage the study. For example, and at the beginning, they can really help you to write the different documents that are that are for the participants, for example, the information and the consent form. We did the exercise several times here, and each time it's very interesting to see that also you think the documents you've written are quite understandable and clear enough. Still, there is a lot to do, and having the eye of the patient, and especially I would say of a naive patient, is very interesting in order to really enlighten the parts that are really not clear for the lay person. So I really encourage you to involve them for this part. They can also help you to recruit the participants and also communicate about the study to help also in the recruitment process. Then once you've collected your data, PPI contributors can also have a look at the results and share with you their vision and what they think about those results. And certainly they will have another interpretation than you have, as maybe they have experienced the disease or the treatment, and this may give another vision of those results. So you can involve them in reviewing the document, becoming members of an advisory board during the whole study, supporting communication with study participants, providing inputs and data analysis, and so on. And I would say, and this is true for the whole cycle, be creative. I think there's no wrong or right way to involve patients as long as you really involve them. Doesn't work. Doesn't work. Oh, it doesn't work anymore. Here it goes.
Yeah. So as Cindy said, during the trial or after the good news that your project is funded, this is what we did in Lucid again, but I think it's something that we can generalize, is to have during the full trial or the entire trial a patient public research panel, well, a panel of patients, but again, not just patient, but patient partners, patients who get this education. Could be apathy. In the French-speaking part, we do also have the FORCE online courses. Well, just have patient partners. And then we compose the panel, as you can see here. We have, well, it's fluctuating. I wrote 8 members, but it's quite optimistic. It goes from 5, 6, 7, 8. Sometimes we have people, it's a 3-year project. So from the beginning to now, some people left and others arrived. But ideally, we wanted to have 10 to 15 people. But finally, I must say it was really too much ambitious because it takes a lot of time to recruit them, and then also to take them on board, to keep a good communication between participants and the researchers. So with 8 members, I was quite happy. And there were 4 men, 4 women, 3 French speakers and 5 German speakers. Well, these numbers changed during the 3 years, but more or less we had more German speakers, also because it's maybe we had 3 university hospitals in the German-speaking part of Switzerland, and only 2, as you know, Geneva and Lausanne. Selection criteria for the panel members. Lucid is about quality of care in hospitalized patients, so we wanted the patient to have at least once experienced an hospitalization in acute care. They should have at least one chronic disease. We also then enlarged this criteria, saying it could be they could also care for somebody having a chronic disease who was hospitalized, like the mother or the father, because finally what we wanted them to share is their experience of the hospital care. The recruitment channels, there is no truth on what I'm saying. It's just what we tried. Advertising on social media well, LinkedIn was quite useful to recruit patients, but mostly from one patient partner to another, because you can use the network of patient partners, which is much more efficient than my own network to recruit patient partners. Then there is some association. We contacted the Fédération Romande des Consommateurs and also the Schweizerischen Patientenstellen. This did not work for us, but it's something we tried. And finally, the patient from our patient panel themselves, during a congress or during a symposium, get in contact with other patients and they took a new patient on board. So this was the mechanism of recruitment. This is a bit regarding the definition. We decided in Lucid to speak not only of patient and public involvement, but we have added the engagement part. This is a reference in the paper published in Nature. You have the reference here under. And the rationale is, at least for Lucid, which is a national data stream, who should be sustainable, who should also survive more than 3 years of funding, that the engagement of patients is crucial to make this feedback loop, that what we will find during the project can go back to the larger public and not only within patient partners of the project. So this is why we also speak about patient and public involvement and engagement within this project. And also the co-production part, it's more and more, when you have patient partners that you get to know well during the trial or during the project, then you can start to co-write or co-produce something. We have the plan in Lucid to co-create an exhibition regarding some result of the study. This is why also it's important for us to engage the patient in the future generation of knowledge.
And finally, after the trial, it's important to communicate about the results of the study. And for this, definitely patients can help by disseminating the information, but also to really offer a communication that, again, is adapted to the targeted population and that is clear enough, understandable, and that focuses on the information that the public needs to know. And last but not least, as already said before, the evaluation and reporting is also very important. And I won't say any more here because I will talk again about this topic in a few slides. So how could you involve contributors at those steps? By helping you summarizing the study results in a lay language, supporting study results communication to participants and public. They can also participate in article writing and by giving you feedbacks about PPI actions and impacts.
Yeah, it's an example of patient contribution. It was at the start of the study, but also during the project. You will probably, if you get the funding, be very happy, and you will have maybe your communication, institutional communication team saying, we will release an information, or even it will be a press information, media coverage of your funding. Here we take the opportunity because this was then published in the 20 Minutes newspaper. We decided to use this media coverage as a public information, and we analyze in a thematic analysis all the comments that we get from this article on overuse of healthcare in medical hospitalization. But this was before getting any data from the project. So this is an idea, as Cindy said, just be creative. And we work on this also with patient contributors who is by chance English speaker, and it helped a lot to just analyze the comments of the patient. Well, it was not patient, it was a public commenting the article. And as you can see here, well, this is what you find on the newspaper. And we get 90 commenters. And finally, well, we could do this analysis, and it will be probably soon published on maybe next year. I will show you the result more in details. Last thing that Cindy said before, I think it's important, and she will come back. During the funding, this was something we heard a lot from patient contributors. They need feedback. We can give them feedback. They can give us feedback. It's not so easy to do, even because if you are also working in healthcare, feedback is not something, it's a culture to give and to receive feedback. And here we try to build together an evaluation survey, mostly based on satisfaction. Well, it's not something that we have at the time being already analyzed and really use as a tool, but after each panel or after each consultation with patient, we ask them to give us a feedback. And I think we shall still develop how not only patient give us feedback, but also researcher give feedback to patient. So this is something to co-construct, and there is a lot of maybe teams working on this topic, which is important, but who is for sure evaluating. You want to finish maybe on this?
We are at the very beginning, I would say, of these PPIE initiatives within our institutions. And for this, reporting is essential to make evolve those PPIE initiatives and be better in the future, optimizing those initiatives. And for this, it's important to report what was good, what was not good, the levels of improvement in each of these tasks and missions that were done together with patients and carers. And this is important to communicate the impact of PPI in research, identify best practices, orientate future investigators and help them in their initiatives, and improve the quality and consistency of PPI actions. You have a model for the reporting on the SCTO website, but there are also documents that you can find on the web. For example, the GRIP reporting form, guidance for reporting involvement of patients and the public. Here at CHUV, we decided to really implement surveys both for PPI contributors, but also for the research team, because we think it's important to get the opinions of both sides and compare those. I will finish just with maybe some information that you already heard, but that finally complete what Marie told you just now. So the level of engagement, profile, expertise, and numbers of PPI contributors change depending on the PPI activity. So you really have to think about your patient engagement plan at the very beginning of your building your study. So you have to think when you are going to imply them during the whole project, and how. Coming back to what was said at the very beginning of these presentation, you have 4 levels of engagement: information, advices, joint decision making, or co-creation, and leadership. And it changes the expertise of the patients that you are going to recruit. And so depending on those different aspects, you are going to tailor your patient engagement plan. And this patient engagement plan has also to take into consideration the budget you have, but also the research team resources, the human aspects, I mean, the available time you have here for your preparatory phase. You will see that it's very, very short, 3 months to build the protocol with the patients. And also you have to take into account the research team experience for PPI. And for this, maybe you will need some help. And for this, have a look at your CPU and ask them advices. It doesn't work anymore. Same thing. I have some problems with. You have to, if you do a multicentric study, you have to include PPI contributors from the different regions, involve also different profiles, expertise, and interests, and each time really clarify the role and missions, the necessary expertise, the period of involvement, and the frequency of the request, and how you are going to remunerate your PPI contributors. For this, you have templates also on the SCT website, first for the recruitment, and afterwards to formalize the collaboration with a written agreement for PPI activities. It was said before, it's very important to remunerate your PPI contributors, but they also have the right to decline the compensation. For example, if they have an high rent, how do you say that? ER rent, rent for invalidity. And if they do a volunteer work, it doesn't mean it will be less impacting. You have to reimburse the travel costs also, so so think about it. And also you have this SCT remuneration policy that was already presented before. So finally, how will your project benefit from PPI? So if you include PPI contributors, you will be sure that patients' interests will be taken into account for your study to build it. That some aspects that might cause problem in the study design will be highlighted and corrected, for example, in your methodology. That your study protocol is adapted according to PPI contributors' visions, concerns, and needs, that the endpoints and outcomes that matter most to patients are identified, and finally, that you offer a communication to the large public that is understandable and clear enough for those. And finally, some take-home messages. PPI takes time, so it's really important to anticipate in order to fit in the 4-month schedule that is proposed by the IICT call calendar. So think about it very early. Start PPI recruitment early and do not set unachievable objectives for this part. Plan actions according to your available resources and competencies. Don't hesitate to implicate other persons that have some experience, for example, the CTU, in order to help you. Ask a letter to people or structures who offered support to set up PPI actions for this grant application. And last but not least, it's not tokenism. So really fully involve PPI contributors and take their opinion into account to build your project. And that's it. We are at the end of this presentation, but very happy if you have any questions for us. And if it's not the case, it's not.
Thank you, Cindy and Marie. I think we have a question from